To start with just a few housekeeping items, closed captioning is available, and you can enable this by using the navigation panel and clicking on Settings. Then click the Meeting tab. Under In Meeting Advanced, verify that closed captioning has been enabled. If the setting has been disabled, click the toggle to enable it. Please note that the chat function will be turned off during the speaker's presentations, but we will enable it for the Q&A. We prefer you ask your questions using the Q&A function. You can submit your questions at any time, even during the speaker's presentations, and we will aim to answer all the questions during the Q&A portion of the event. You can ask questions anonymously. Everyone can see the questions, but if there's a specific question you'd really like us to answer, you can upvote that question by clicking on the thumbs up button in that particular question. Simon Fraser University respectfully acknowledges the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, Katsi, Coquitlam, Kakite, Kwantlen, Semiahmoo, and Tawasin peoples on whose unceded traditional territories our three campuses reside. We encourage you to visit native-land.ca website to learn more about the traditional territories that you live, work, and play in. We're so pleased you're joining us today. It's so nice to have so many new students who will soon be new friends and classmates from different places and with different scientists all here together today. We'll be hearing from speakers. Each of them will address some of the aspects of a return to campus plan for the Faculty of Science or share their experiences from a student's perspective to get a better idea of what to expect from your classes and our on-campus experience this fall. To begin, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Dr. David Hick, for a quick overview of the teaching, learning, and student experience this year. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I hope you can see my screen, and I'm really going to provide you with just a very brief overview of the Faculty of Science and then some of the planning that we have been doing as we return to campus this fall. It's been a very challenging year for everyone. I know you're very aware of this from your own experience in terms of how to do everything remotely and safely and not being able to get together in person. And we are very much looking forward to being able to bring you to campus this fall and for everyone at SFU to be able to return to campus over the course of the fall. So let me just say a few things to remind you about this awesome and amazing faculty that you're going to be joining very soon. We have 8 departments, and most of you will be taking courses from several of the departments, and so you'll be navigating through the entire science precinct of SFU, and so I hope you become familiar with the resources, the teachers, the labs, and all of the work that's going on, all of the really interesting research and other work that's going on across the entire Faculty of Science. Faculty of Science has about 250 faculty members, nearly 4,000 graduate students. Pre-COVID times, and we'll return to that soon, we had over 600 co-op placements every year. We've got about 600 graduate students, and these are amazing people you'll meet, many of whom will become your teaching assistants as well in your courses. And we have over 20,000 graduates from the Faculty of Science spread across the rest of the world. And I just want to give you a flavor of some of the things that recent accomplishments and kudos that have in the Faculty of Science that have just made us very proud. We have award-winning researchers. Professor Yi was just awarded the John Polanyi Award from the Chemical Institute of Canada. Nalima Nigam is a professor in the Department of Mathematics, and she just received the King's Field Award for Industrial Mathematics. We have award-winning teachers. Professor Clayton in the Department of Biomedical Physiology and Kinesiology was one of the 3 instructors to win the University Excellence in Teaching Award this past year. She's a specialist in spinal cord injury in the faculty. And in case you're wondering how you're going to get on with computer resources and access to the internet and access to classes and things like that, our IT team within the Faculty of Science won the Staff Achievement Award this year for keeping everybody connected over the last year. So we have lots of support and resources for accessing courses and materials online, and you'll be introduced to some of those as you get onto campus. And then finally, just you know, the work that's going on, the research that's going on, the teaching that's going on in the faculty has been awarded, has been recognized through a number of engagement awards as well. And in this last year, particularly related to issues around COVID-19 and understanding the dynamics of the pandemic. So we've had Newsmakers of the Year and public engagement and outreach awards in the faculty as well. But you know what, today is about you. It's about our great students, our new students that are coming into the faculty, and we're very proud of all of you and want you all to be successful. So I just want to say a few things about how to navigate the next few weeks as you register for your classes and prepare for returning to campus in the fall. So what to expect? Well, there's a few things I want to keep you in mind, that I want you to keep in mind. And we'll go through this in a little bit more detail over the next hour, but and of course answer any questions you have. But the most important thing is to review program requirements before you choose your courses. So essentially do your homework and know what you need to be able to what courses you need to take so that you can progress through your program over the coming semesters, but also know what the options are in case you want to keep the doors open. You haven't made your mind up yet, that's okay too. But the more that you learn about the options that are available, the better prepared you'll be. And to help you with that, we have a whole bunch of advisors in the dean's office and in each of the departments, and they can provide you with answers to questions you might have about courses and programs depending on your specific interests. So we'll be able to provide links to all of those as well. And hopefully you've made contact with some of those advisors already. And finally, and I can't stress this enough, is to really carefully read course requirements and descriptions when you register for courses. We're sort of in a transitional semester this fall. There still will be courses that are delivered online or remotely, and some of those will be synchronous. That means you take them at a given time during the day and each week. And some of them will be asynchronous, which means you can access them anytime. But probably 60 to 80% of all of our courses will be delivered face-to-face. When you look at the course requirements and course descriptions, you need to look carefully at what the mode of delivery will be for lectures and for labs and for tutorials, and in some cases for exams as well. So this is particularly important if you think you might not have access to campus on a regular basis. If there are requirements for face-to-face components of courses, then you might want to look for something else. But again, all of this should be very clearly described, and you should look at that before you register. And of course, if you have any questions, please ask. So just to go through those things in a little more detail, review the calendar and check the requirements for the program that you're interested in. There's a large number of major and minor programs in the Faculty of Science. And when you're starting out, you want to make sure that you've got the appropriate introductory courses, foundation courses, and that these will be prerequisites for what you'd like to study as you proceed through your degree. So make sure you look at those program requirements. And again, advisors can help you to map out those things over the next, say, year or two so that you have a good plan. The other thing, and I'll just stress this, I'm sure you've received several messages about this, make sure you take advantage of the university prep online course so that you can really have more information about this academic transition to SFU this fall. And in particular, just draw attention to the resources that are available to help you build a balanced schedule, to use GoSFU and the registration system, and of course to make those connections to an advisor. But the other thing you're going to learn about, and you'll see this probably in an email next week, is we're very excited in the faculty. We're going to be opening a new space on campus, right on the academic quadrangle, called SciSpace. And this is the Science Student Center. And you'll be able to get support for academic support and information about non-academic programming as well. So things like financial aid, career services, international exchanges, health and counseling and accessible learning resources, student clubs and the departmental student unions. This will be the place where all of that sort of consolidated. And like I say, we're very excited about it, and we hope to have this open in September. This is a photograph I took this morning of what it looks like, but don't let that scare you. We're assured that it'll be all ready for when you arrive on campus, or very soon after. So keep your eyes open for SciSpace. And then finally, what I'd like to say is that, you know, like I said, it's been a tough year, but the Faculty of Science has been safely operating courses and laboratories on campus throughout the pandemic. And here's just a couple photographs of the sort of ways that we've assured that instructors and students and staff and everyone who is on campus can function safely with sort of physical distancing, with masks, and with the sort of ways that we can keep distances in shared spaces so that everyone is safe. And of course, as we return to normal, those types of requirements will change. But I just want to assure you that we've been very successful in our efforts to do this over the last year. And this is something Ruth Aspinall will talk to you a little bit more about right now, is our preparations for a safe return to campus in the fall. But for the moment, let me just welcome you to SFU Science, and I'm really looking forward to meeting you when you get to campus this fall. So I think I'll stop sharing my screen and look forward to your questions after, and maybe just pass it over to Ruth right now.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate being invited to this session, and I look forward to giving you a very high-level overview of the safety measures that we have in place, and to reassure everyone that we've been looking at very closely things that we need to put in place over the course of the last year with the pandemic. And also, I just wanted to highlight in this slide here the fact that we have been running quite a lot of face-to-face activity over the last year, with research back on campus and many students coming in for teaching labs. So with that in mind, I'll just move to the next slide, which is really just kind of a breakdown of science by the numbers to show you that we've had quite a robust presence on campus. So from June 2020 to June 2021, we actually have had about 1,200 faculty, staff, postdocs, RAs, and undergraduate and graduate students in the research labs across all the buildings within science. We've also, since September, so for each of the September, January, and summer terms, had in total about 2,000 students, or 1,900 to 2,000 students, coming in for face-to-face teaching labs across a number of our buildings, and we've managed this very safely. I can tell you that we've had several positive COVID-19 cases, and those were impacting people that were working in science or students that came to science. But the good news is really that none of these transmissions actually happened on campus. This is people who became COVID positive off campus, were monitoring their health, reported it, and stayed off campus, and we didn't have any person-to-person transmission within science over the last year. We looked at many different processes and protocols over the last year that we should prepare and implement, and that was to keep everybody safe. We actually had a lot of people coming back over the summer as well. So we've had these systems in place for quite a while, and they've been managed very smoothly and effectively. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail with this slide because you can see it's quite detailed, but just to give you an idea of all the different things that we've been looking at and implementing. But I will tell you, just from the perspective of safety protocols, training requirements, and other administrative processes, we've had to have everybody have a safety plan for their area, following very strict ministry guidelines. Everyone has had to do COVID-19 safety training, and this actually includes faculty and staff and students as well. So everybody has to be completing this. We've had mandatory screening self-assessments. Those are health checks that people do prior to coming on campus, and that's just to make sure that you know you're healthy before you come up, and you're not, there's very minimized risk of transmitting any kind of COVID, any coronavirus. We've put in place some accommodation guidelines for instructors. So that's for students who might have symptoms or might become COVID positive, and how to deal with that within the classroom environment. There's confidential contact tracing procedures in place across SFU. Had a very robust on-campus staff presence to provide support to people who have any kind of safety or operational concerns, as well as any of the students coming in. We do send out very regular communications about safety updates, latest guidelines, whether that's a more restrictive measure or a lessening of restrictions. Very strong communications encouraging vaccination for those on campus, and also how to report a concern so we can address concerns from people as they come up. We've also put in place a lot of PPE and related sort of controls to keep people safe. So obviously, like many areas, we had a mandatory mask policy in effect in all spaces. That's still in place. We provided these for people who, in the teaching labs, if somebody forgot their mask, although generally that didn't happen because you come onto campus with a mask already. Gloves or other PPE were provided, PPE meaning personal protective equipment. So that could be a plexiglass visor or other types of things within the lab environments as necessary. Very strong disinfection protocols were in place. So every workspace, teaching lab, every area in use was wiped down or sprayed with we have a fogging machine that we used between uses, or common areas were wiped down with disinfectant spray and wipes. Our cleaning staff came in very regularly, more regular than normal, to clean all the high touch point and common areas. And we also had actual hand hygiene protocols, and as well as encouraging better hand hygiene, as well as provision of hand sanitizer in many areas where there might not have been a sink close by. And you'll see this in place across the university as well, but we had quite a lot of these stations within science. We also have some physical controls in place, and these were sort of the first things that happened last year, were physical distancing measures, and we've all heard about this, and it's been in place in many institutions or work environments or public spaces. And we did implement 50% occupancy restriction, which was following WorkSafe BC protocol. We've been doing a building ventilation review, so HVAC review across all Faculty of Science space, and that's to ensure that the ventilation, which is quite important, meets COVID-19 standards for aerosol transmission. So we're looking to meet or exceed these to make sure everyone's safe when they come into the building. We've put plexiglass shielding in higher risk areas, for instance, when there's a lot more traffic potentially. One of the key things we did was staging of students in the lecture halls to check their safety requirements before we escorted them into the lab, so they knew where to go when they got into the lab environment safely. And this is just one of the classes that went on in the lecture hall, or actually the exam that went on recently that we have shown here. There's also a lot of posters and signage put up everywhere to manage directional flow and try and reduce congestion in areas. This sort of sums up the main areas for safety that we looked at and implemented a lot of controls, and it's what we have in place now. So I guess the big question probably people would ask is, what are we looking at for the fall? Well, I guess the answer to that is we don't really know right now. because we don't actually have the guidelines. And of course, many of these things will follow the status of vaccination and exposures and across the province, as well as what the ministry and provincial guidelines will be. So we expect to get these guidelines over the next couple of weeks, and we'll be looking at these very closely. I do want to say that the safety of everybody on campus, students, faculty, and staff is a very big priority for us. So we'll make sure that we implement and continue with measures that keep people safe. I think the measures will include some combination of what I have on the slide here, possibly more, possibly less, but again, it will depend on status at the time. So we could be looking at mask use. We probably will have a safety plan, some kind of plan for congestion. We'll have to continue to monitor the ventilation across all the buildings to make sure it's operational and properly operational. And obviously, regular communications with people and ensuring that if they have concerns, they can bring them forward. We can look at addressing them. I think I will leave it at this actually and stop sharing my screen and return it back to Suzanne to introduce our next speaker. But I would ask if you have any questions at all about safety related to COVID, please do put them in the Q&A and I'm happy to answer them.
That's great. Thank you so much, Ruth and David, to helping to explain what we've been doing over the past year and what the fall semester will look like on campus. I just wanted to let you know that our next presenter is Carl Young, who is a student in behavioral neuroscience and biomedical physiology and kinesiology. Carl's going to share a bit about his experience as a first-year student who started university remotely during the pandemic.
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Carl Young. I'm a behavioral neuroscience student. I began university completely online last September, and I'll just quickly speak to how this transition went for me and how you can make it easier for yourself. So more than anything, I was nervous when I started university in 2020. I'm sure that many of you are in the same boat, especially after hearing that it was going to be fully online. I was really nervous about the quality of education, and mostly also because of the transitions that I knew I would have to make, just transitioning from in-person school to online school and also transitioning from high school to university. And then now that we're going back to school at some point in the fall, transitioning back from online school to in-person school and really beginning university a second time. So all of those things were things that I was thinking about. And I was really worried because I thought university science was going to hit me like a train. Because it is very difficult and I didn't know how I was going to do in online school. Luckily, I figured out eventually that all of my worries were a lot larger than they needed to be. Professors were generally quite considerate about the challenges of online learning, which was generally quite well organized. I think sometimes when we're new to university, we can forget that like TAs and professors are just people. And usually, most of the time, at least here at SFU, they're quite approachable and you can always email them about things that are challenging you as a student. And there were a lot of challenges because there just happens to be in university and just with online school, of course, that's going to be even more of a factor. But most professors and TAs were quite responsive. And yeah, there'll be differences in the ways that professors organize things. With regards to classes, course material, how tests and assessments are carried out in labs. But you'll find this a much easier challenge to overcome if you try to stay proactive and organized. And I mentioned online labs. Many of you guys are probably worried about how online labs and tutorials are going to work and how they're going to prepare you for going back to in-person. I took a fair number of labs online, completely online this last year. And honestly, some labs benefit from online, some labs don't. But I think that what I can say for certain is that it's always best to attend them regardless, because you don't know how much you're going to learn until you're actually there facing the lab and having to work it out. And more often than not, it's actually not just the lab, but it's also the interaction time with the TAs and the lab instructors and your fellow classmates that will improve your understanding of the course material and also your experience in the course. I think that it's just as important for you to feel like you're learning things and feel like you're having a good time. That's part of the university experience as well. And I'd say that this philosophy of trying to attend everything regardless of whether or not you'll think it will help. It's the same for online office hours. Throughout this year, throughout this completely online year, many professors chose to have online office hours where they could help their students through Zoom or other services of the same nature. And those office hours are really helpful, even though they're online, even though it can be a little bit, there can be a little bit of separation, but it's always quite helpful to be able to speak to profs and remember that they're real people who can help you with your problems. And yeah, university science did hit me like a train. I'm not going to lie. The workload is a step up from grade 12, if that's what you're coming from. And yeah, I failed a midterm. I got a 40% on a physics 100 midterm, which at the time really scared me because I had all these big dreams about what I wanted to do, all these hopes of doing well in school and university. And I thought all of that was in jeopardy because I failed this one physics midterm. But luckily I still ended up with an A in this course. And I think that's something that lots of new students can kind of forget, is just to like take everything in perspective and remember that it is your first year. Things are going to be hard. Just trying to get ahead of that learning curve is a very difficult feat to accomplish. And it's hard to study without the company of your peers and knowing how well you're doing relative to the rest of the class, because you're always alone. But the thing is that isolation of online school definitely taught me things that I wouldn't have learned as quickly in university. Number one being self-regulation. When you don't have teachers in front of you all the time, constantly breathing down your neck, and the only classmate you ever deal with is really just yourself, you really learn to manage your schedule, and you really learn to stay on top of things if you are driven to succeed. Second thing that I learned was resilience. With that physics 100 midterm and other obstacles like it, where I didn't do as well as I wanted to on a quiz or a lab or a test or any kind of assessment, a big part of first year, I think especially, is learning how to overcome setbacks and burnout. Because in university, you're going to meet lots of people who are just tired and lots of people who feel like they don't have it in them to go forward. But the thing is, things usually aren't as bad as they seem, as long as you work hard and as long as you seek help when you need it. And that's the third thing that I learned, is to seek help. It's definitely a lot harder to reach out in online school for some people, because you're not dealing with people, you're dealing with emails and things like that. But the thing is, you really are in a community, even though you might not feel like it. You are in a community of people who are literally paid to help you, TAs and professors, and even other students who may be in first year or maybe older. All of these people are great resources to help you with anything. And the thing is, it might be harder to reach out in online school to get the help that you need. But if you can do it in online classes, you for sure can do it in person, because reaching out to an actual person is just so much easier. And if you can do it through an email, you can definitely do it when you go back to university for an in-person class. So you'll have mastered that skill for sure. Fourth thing is making friends. Now, again, online school is quite isolating sometimes, and there are ways as a first-year student that you can overcome this and make the journey a lot easier for yourself. You can sign up for mentorship programs. I know that the Faculty of Science has a mentorship program where they pair you up with an older, more experienced student, and you can ask them questions about the course or the program that you're interested in. And outside of mentorship programs, you can also join clubs and student unions. I'm a part of the Behavioral Neuroscience Student Society, which is essentially a union and a club for all students who are interested in this major or who are already in this major. We can connect with each other and help each other out. And these resources to connect with people, they were some of the most important things for me in my success as a first-year student. Just having people to hang on to and reach out to when I felt like the workload was just too intense. It was quite helpful to have those people. Now, I'm going to try to leave you with two pieces of advice. Number one is the most obvious one, which is work hard. University is difficult, especially university science. I think it can definitely be a step up. And if the workload doesn't worry you at least a little, I'd frankly be a little bit concerned for you, because it isn't something to be trifled with. But here's the thing, you make it what it is. The more proactive you are about your coursework, the quicker you jump on those assignments as soon as you get them, and the more practice that you do in between assessments, in between midterms, the less of a worry it will be. Like, the beast is only going to get scarier if you try to turn away from it. And here's another thing is that you have to learn responsibility. It goes hand in hand with hard work. In high school, we always heard that, like, or at least I always heard that nobody's going to be holding your hand through university. You'll have to help yourself and all of that scary kind of rhetoric. But this is only half true. Nobody will hold your hand through university, but people will always be there to help you. Like I said, TAs, instructors, mentors, fellow students. I'd suggest that as a first-year student, don't be shy. Don't be worried that you don't know anyone, don't know how university works, because quite frankly, I'm at the end of my first year and I don't know how university works. I don't know my way around SFU campus. And you know what? That has never stopped me from asking for help when I really needed it. And yeah, that's how you manage your problems when you have them, is that you seek out people who can help you and you make sure that you address the problem and begin working to fix it before it gets too big. And yeah, don't skip classes. Don't do that. That's a bad idea. Don't do that. Okay, second piece of advice is just be kind to yourself. That's definitely something I would forget a lot in first year. Yeah, you should be responsible. You should work hard, but please be comfortable with doing things at your own pace. Like, you're entering university after spending, what, 1.5 years in a pandemic, dealing with obstacle after obstacle, transition after transition. It's not easy. Give yourself a break. And if you have a day when all you can do is attend your classes and then go to bed, that's okay. Just stay on top of your courses, but rest as often as you need to, in order to feel good about yourself and feel like you're not, like, keep your head above water is what I'm trying to say. You don't have to have everything figured out. You don't need to know what your major is going to be. You don't even need to know, like, what courses you're planning to take next semester. You can figure all that out in due time. Just make sure, I think the most important thing outside of working hard is that you feel good about yourself and what you're doing in university here at SFU. Yeah, I think your main goal for this year is to stick the landing from high school to university in a way that's not only academically healthy, but also like personally healthy. Make sure that you're healthy and happy at the end of this first year, that you still feel like you have some fight in you, because a degree is a hard thing to accomplish. But the good news is that most people say that first year is the hardest year. And this will likely be the case for you because of the virus. But I just want you guys to know that you'll be all good as long as you work hard and you remain kind to yourself. And you remember that, like, there's always light at the end of the tunnel. There's always someone who can help you. Things are never as bad as they might seem in the moment. And yeah, you're here because you got here. And you know, it would be a shame if you came this far only to come this far. So yeah, work hard and be kind to yourself. That's all first year is about.
Thank you so much, Kyle, for that advice. And it's a really good reminder for everybody that you are not alone in this journey. There's a whole team of people here to support you and help you to make sure that you have a successful university career. So thank you very much for that. Now I'd like to introduce Catherine Shin, one of our molecular biology and biochemistry students. Catherine is in her 4th year at SFU and will share some information about her experience with InPerson Labs over the last year during the pandemic.
Thank you for the introduction, Suzanne. Hi, everyone. My name is Catherine, and I'm in chemistry and molecular biology and biochemistry, or more colloquially known as Chem MBB. The summer before I came to SFU, as excited as I was also really worried and anxious because there were so many things I didn't know about university in general or SFU specifically. And I imagine that many of you guys share some of these feelings, perhaps at a heightened degree, especially considering that you'll be joining our campus during a particularly precarious time. So today I'll be sharing some of my experiences as an SFU student during the pandemic to help alleviate some of those worries. As you can imagine, most of my courses were done over Zoom or some sort of format like that. I attended my lectures, my tutorials, as well as my labs in this very room, wearing pajamas more often than I would like to admit. But I also took a few courses that had an in-person lab component. This was because there were certain learning objectives that needed to be met and could not be done in my own room. I don't know about you, but I'm not really keen on growing bacteria in my rooms, even if it was for scientific purposes. So I was more than happy to go in person. Um, I'm not gonna lie, initially I felt pretty worried and I was anxious after spending an entire, like from March to August, all just being at home pretty much, to have to go to school and interact with a bunch of other people from who knows where doing who knows what. But I felt pretty safe, especially after the first couple of times I went. There were a lot of modifications that were made. Ruth has already gone over some of those modifications, so I want to speak more about personally and how I perceived them. The biggest difference I noticed was the class sizes. Class sizes were a lot smaller. In labs, typically you have 3 to 4 students at every like desk or fume hood, but then this time around they only had 1 student at every bench or fume hood. And I'm not going to lie, the extra real estate was very much appreciated. Also, where possible, we were given our own equipment when normally we would have shared. So instead of having to wait around and staying at the lab a little longer because you had to take turns, I really appreciated that I can like kind of go because I had everything I needed all at once. And also, since there were less students per class, but the same number of instructors and TAs, I found that I got a lot more one-on-one time with my TAs and professors. Prior to the pandemic, labs were a really great learning opportunity, but I also found that at times I couldn't get the attention that I needed, or I couldn't ask the questions I wanted because there were just so many other students. But with reduced class sizes, I really got to take advantage of the extra one-on-one time and get to know my TAs and talk to them about like why they chose to go to grad school, or talk to my professors about like why they became professors. So I didn't just get experience learning science. I also got like career advice and life advice, and that was really great. And I also felt pretty like confident in a lot of the things that the faculty did, such as like there was a self-assessment that you were required to do, and there would actually be someone there to verify that you actually did it. And I felt really comfortable knowing that not only did I have to do it, but they made sure that everyone else had to do it. And then I don't know if you remember from the pictures that Ruth showed earlier, as well as Dr. Hick, about the students like seating in like a lecture hall. I'm not gonna lie, that kind of felt like going back to grade school again, having like to like sit somewhere and like wait for your teacher to take you to the lab and like walk like in a single file line. But I understand why they did it, and I think I wouldn't have felt as comfortable if that wasn't implemented. So there are going to be some changes and some things that may feel weird to do as an adult in university, but I assure you that they're there for your safety. I hope some of this has been helpful for you and has provided a glimpse of what your life could look like come fall. And before I pass on, back to Suzanne, I would like to do a small plug-in for an event I've been organizing as part of the MBB Student Union. So on June 30th, so next Wednesday at 6 p.m. Vancouver time, the MBB Student Union will be hosting an event called Must Knows for Course Planning. We'll be sharing some relevant information about how to course plan, the stuff I wish I had known before starting my first semester. We'll talk about what a co-requisite is, what a tutorial is, where to find your course requirements, as well as the various resources you have available to you in order to plan your courses. Even if you're not an MBB student, you are more than welcome to join us. The event will have a lot of general information that could be relevant to any science student, especially if you're in any of the other life science majors, such as biology, biomedical physiology, or kinesiology. I hope to see you guys there.
Thank you, Catherine. I just wanted to thank you for your time and learning more about the courses and what happened while you were in class on campus during the pandemic. It was certainly a little bit different, but I know that you gained the understanding and experience of the coursework while you were here. So I would now want to move on to the part we've all been waiting for, which is a Q&A segment. So we've been receiving your questions during the presentation, and if we don't have a chance to address every question during our allotted time, we will be sure to include the response to your questions in a follow-up email that will be sent to you after the event. So to kick it off, I just want to start with a question that has been, to start, there's actually quite a few very specific academic questions that have been asked about what does this course mean? What if I take this course or that course? Those questions are best answered by an academic advisor. And so one thing to keep in mind is that the academic advisors are there to help you through these questions. However, we will respond to those questions. We'll seek the advice of an academic advisor who's not on the panel today, and we'll make sure that those questions are answered. But again, in the meantime, David certainly referenced the university prep courses. That's going to help you with some of that. And again, you're always welcome to reach out to an academic advisor to get more information about those very specific things. So those are questions about how many courses should I take? How can I and when should I reach out to an advisor? So I think those are really important things to make sure that we'll send you that information. There were a couple of questions about vaccines. And so I just want to reach out actually to Ruth perhaps to answer some questions about when people may not be vaccinated or if they're vaccinated, how will we know? And will I have the ability to interact with someone to ensure they are vaccinated? What if they're not vaccinated? What does that mean for me?
Yes, thanks, Suzanne. This is a question that's coming up a lot right now. We have many people on campus asking that as we kind of look forward to the fall, as we're ramping up the numbers and we're having all the students come back or in much larger quantities. I would say that we will have to follow the PHO and the ministry guidance on this, and that will really depend on what things look like. Probably in August or later on, they'll be reassessing that. It is very unlikely that we will have a mandatory vaccination policy where people have to provide vaccination status. That's not something that will generally happen across Canada for several reasons. We understand its liability and privacy issues. So it's very likely that there will be no requirement for providing a vaccination status. And how we'll address that will really depend on what the guidelines from the ministry come back to us with. But I expect it's going to be more of an educational piece that we'll be putting out, encouraging students to get vaccinated and maybe looking at ways we can put resources in place to help with that. That'll probably be at the more SFU level rather than within the Faculty of Science. So that's about all I can say on that one right now.
Great. Thank you, Ruth. Now, for Kyle and Catherine, maybe one of you or both of you could answer this. Do you have any advice for technology or desktop setups for hybrid learning?
Yeah, I think that any standard laptop or like monitor setup should be good. High-speed Wi-Fi is pretty important. I think that as long as you have decent space to do like your handwritten work and also your computer work, you should be fine. I think that like it's really just a matter of making sure that you're comfortable and like making sure you're comfortable to be seated there for at least an hour. Just make sure that you're in a place that will work for you for like a relatively long period of time, like a class. Yeah, but high-speed Wi-Fi, oh my gosh, so important.
Catherine, do you have any other advice?
I think I saw a couple of questions referring to like specific like laptop recommendations or stuff like that. Those kinds of questions are very personal and it depends on what kind of major you're in and what kind of work you want to do in the future. So that's something you need to ask yourself or people who are within your own department. It's going to be very different for someone who wants to do a lot of computational work in data science versus someone who's in biology. So there isn't one size fits all, and even within those departments or students or people among those fields, also there's a lot of personalization available. I do agree with Kyle that you should have if possible, you should have a space that works best for you and have high-speed internet. Another thing I would want to add is that have something that can take photos in order for you to upload your exams. That's a very, very common way exams are done. In order for you to, usually your iPhone will pop, or your phone or whatever should work. But if you don't have that, have some sort of scanner or high quality camera.
Great, thank you. Now, David, this next question is for you about online instruction. So we'll send some information. There is a question generally about how do we find course descriptions and course outlines. We'll include that in the links for the email that we'll send out following this event. But sort of questions about how many courses might be online, how are labs, whether it be in person or online, and what does online instruction look like? Like, how do exams work remotely?
Well, if you'd asked me this a year ago, Suzanne, I would have had the same questions. How will this work? But we've managed to do this now through several semesters over the whole year. And I think that one of the things about online lectures and online tutorials or online exams is that for a lot of students, when we've asked them if that is a format that works, there's been a lot of positive responses because it does provide some flexibility in terms of how and when those lectures can be you can access the lectures. Even if those online lectures are scheduled at a certain time, they're generally recorded. And so you can watch them again later on. And that's our plan for the fall, is that lectures, almost all lectures, to the best of our ability, will be recorded. And so if for some reason, whether they're in person or remote, you will be able to watch those at a later time. Now, in terms of exams, if you are required to take an online exam, you do need to sort of use a portal that allows for you to take that exam either through something that we call Canvas, or there might be another system that's used perhaps in mathematics or in chemistry for you to take those exams. But your instructors will explain all of that to you. They will also have practice sessions before you actually have the exam. Your TAs might use the same system for quizzes, practice quizzes and tutorials. So by the time you get to a midterm exam, you'll already have that experience of that interface with what the online format looks like, and it won't be a big surprise. But as I said, this is very much a transitional semester, and we are hoping as we move through September, October, November, December, we'll be able to increase the amount of face-to-face learning and face-to-face assessment that can go on. But it's very important that you look at the when you go to the registration site, and there's been several questions about when registration opens and things like that, and we'll come back to that later. But that you look at the requirements for the courses in terms of whether they're online or face-to-face, or which components might be online or face-to-face, because it will vary from course to course as we make this adjustment from almost everything being online to more and more courses coming back to delivery on campus.
Great, thank you, David. So Kyle, you touched on this a little bit when you were talking about your first year. I wonder if you have any advice about time management for first year, especially if you want to work while you're also learning.
Okay, yeah, sure. In my second semester, I worked 2 jobs while I was studying full time. You don't have to do this. It's not something I would particularly recommend for your first semester. But if you have a part-time job, say you're working like 6 to 12, 15 hours a week, that's perfectly manageable, honestly. Just make sure that I think a big thing that was important to my success so far is that when I get assignments, I'm the kind of person that doesn't like sleeping knowing that I could be doing them. I don't like to just let those assignments just like fester. I don't like it. So I just try to get started, try to tell yourself, okay, I'm going to accomplish this much at this given time. And doing that throughout the week, like you don't even have to be too ambitious with the goals that you're setting for yourself in terms of assignment completion. Just set goals for yourself, try to accomplish them, and you'll find that like before you know it, it will be done, and you'll probably finish those assignments a lot quicker than you would have imagined, which will help you manage your time and give you a lot more free time to be doing things like working.
Great. Thank you so much. Now, David, as you have lots of experience in lecture halls, can you tell the students a bit about them? They're very big. Is there a microphone for students when they're asking questions? If not, how do we make sure that their questions can be heard?
Yeah, great question. So some of the larger lecture halls will hold a few hundred students, and maybe maybe not at capacity. We're hoping that we can spread people out a little bit in those classrooms, and that's part of the scheduling process that we're going through right now. And as Ruth mentioned, as the guidelines, provincial and ministry guidelines change, we'll be making adjustments leading up to September. In large lecture halls, your professors, your instructors will often be mic'd. They'll easily be mic'd, so you'll be able to hear them very clearly. And in most of those rooms, there's tiered seating. So if you want to speak up, if you want to ask a question, you'll find you don't really need a microphone, that your voice will project very well into those spaces. And then every instructor will have a protocol for when you can ask questions. Some instructors will be very happy for you to interrupt at any time, either with raising your hand or they'll pause and ask for questions. And I think you'll find it very easy to find ways to interact with the instructor and to be able to have a sort of exchange of knowledge in two directions. The best lectures are ones that are interactive, and you'll find many professors at SFU have a very sort of engaging way of trying to draw you in to things. So it's not just a one-way communication of material. That said, many of the questions that you might have might occur to you after the lecture is over. And so there's several things you can do then. You can come and speak to your professor at the end of class. Often they'll have time to do that, and they'll let you know if they're not, unless they're running to something else. Or they'll have office hours, or by email, you reach out to them and ask your questions. And it's really good to do that in real time, not to save them up for several weeks and then sort of try to have this accumulation of queries answered all at once, but just to, on an ongoing basis, after every lecture or at the end of every week, to have that communication with your instructors, with your professors, with your TAs. And that reinforces a lot of learning. It clears up misconceptions along the way, and it allows you to really be more successful in your courses. But if you're worried about how you ask a question in a larger class, because these are bigger classes than you've probably been used to in high school, I think you won't find any problems. The important thing is not to be shy, to raise your hand, to speak up, and to make sure that if you have a question that you pose it and you get an answer. If not in real time, that you can follow up later on.
Great. Thank you, David. Now, a quick question for you, Ruth. So if somebody doesn't have good Wi-Fi at home, is there good Wi-Fi on campus?
Yes, actually, Suzanne, I will respond to that by saying it over the last year, ITS, which is IT services at SFU, has spent a lot of time and a fair amount of financial investment in upgrading the Wi-Fi all across campus. So they've essentially doubled what the capacity was previously, and we have found that there's been quite a lot of bandwidth. So with increasing numbers coming back in September, that might be something that we've alerted them to be prepared for, and they are looking at that as well. But the upgrade has been quite significant, so we don't anticipate there will be any problems with Wi-Fi. So of course, in science, if anybody experiences that, I would ask that you let us know, and we'll look at that, and we'll definitely put measures in place to work with IT services to improve that, but I don't think there'll be any problem.
That's great. Thank you so much, Ruth. I know that there's so many questions that have come in, and I think it's wonderful that you have so many things you're wondering about your new experience coming to university. But unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. So the questions we didn't get to, not to worry, we will promise to follow up in the email that we send you following this event, and we will include responses to all of those questions. So to conclude our event, I want to let you know some very important next steps. So class enrollment begins on Monday, July 5th. That was one of the questions that you had. We recommend you enroll in classes as soon as you're able to do so, and you will receive information from Student Service with a date and time to access the system. So we really encourage you to make sure that as soon as you have a day and time for enrollment, you take advantage of that and secure the classes you want to get into. If you need any assistance with the enrollment process, just a reminder that you should complete the University Prep Step 2 online if you haven't done so already. If you have any specific questions about what courses to take, you should probably reach out to an academic advisor. And again, we will be sure to send you information about how to do that in the email. So also further what David was saying, it's really, really important you review the course delivery methods. So will the course be a remote? Will it be in person? Will it be synchronous? Will it be asynchronous? Will it be a blend of all of the above? You can find that information out on the course outlines. And again, we will send you a link to the course outlines in the email so you can look those up. Watch your mailbox in the coming weeks for a little welcome gift from us and more information about what to expect this summer and fall. We also suggest you join the SFU Undergraduate 2021 Facebook group to meet peers, join science-specific groups, and continue to receive important information from the university on updates. To learn more about SFU's recovery stages and additional information, resources, and FAQs, you can visit SFU's Return to Campus website. So again, don't worry if you missed any information today. We'll send you a follow-up email with all the links to the information we referenced, as well as a link to this recording, so you can watch it again at a later date or share with a family member who wasn't able to attend. Finally, on behalf of the entire Faculty of Science, we are excited to see you on campus in the fall. We hope we've boosted your confidence about starting university and hope you feel more about what to expect from your classes. Enjoy the summer. Stay safe, and thank you for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.